So, hello and welcome to the next episode of the Self Development with Tactics podcast. With me, your host, Christopher, and I'm a 17-year-old graphic design student from Austria, and I'm really into self development. I'm really thankful for this opportunity and this possibility I have to, serve you some information. And today, as you can or cannot see in the background, it depends on whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on a podcast or on a podcast platform you chose. 10 tips that entrepreneurs can learn from management from running a restaurant kitchen. And I think there are also some in general ideas and insights that might or hopefully might bring you some value into your life. And I would say we will actually move on. And this information is brought to you by Toronto chef Steve Gonzalez, and he has spent 30 years in kitchens, starting from slinging buns and fries at Canadian chain Saw Hubert at the age of 13 to his current multi-story restaurant, snack bar, and even space baro, whatever this is. But nevertheless, we will go straight into the tips. Don't be sentimental. Let's see. Restaurant margins are often razor thin, and with rising prices in food and labor, it's important to separate budgetary concerns from any sense of nostalgia. You've got to hit your numbers or you're not going to survive, says Gonzalez. And when it comes to labor costs and food costs, it sucks. Emotionally, you grow attached to people and products and dishes, and sometimes you've got to make decisions for the better of the business, and it can't be personal. It again reminds me on something Gary Vee said on his latest podcast, and don't mind if I hope you don't mind that I quote him as often, but I do not have anything to do with him, so don't take this as some sort of ads or some kind of, but I really believe in him and I believe in what he's saying. And he said that he is very, very poor, and because he isn't the person who fires everybody. He's the person who gets a lot of employees, which often aren't doing anything, and he says that he has to fire them and he doesn't want to actually. And this is something non-sentimental persons are just in this kind of area in a they're just they have an advantage. Sorry, they have an advantage over sentimental people, because if the numbers say you have to fire one, you must fire one, if you want or not. Doesn't matter. Yeah. Forget about the dream space. I would say that there's something like a dream space doesn't really exist, because there will always be going something wrong. There will be always some pretty fucked up people who just fuck with you and are really getting on your nerve, and there are all the time or sometimes just some things you can't really do something about, like if it has to do with driving your car and you're in a what is called traffic jam, and so on. But let's see what they meant. Similar to shopping for a house, falling in love with the restaurant space can be a risky as well as expensive mistake. I would say so, because if you just take a restaurant that's in the nowhere, just outside of a city, and there's just nobody around it, it may be not the best idea to buy it. But I do not have a clue about restaurants and such things. Gonzalez looked for the perfect spot for borrow for 3 years, finding nothing but disappointment along the way. You can have one in your hands and you are ready to sign the deal and something just doesn't seem right. Listen to that feeling, he says. You can't get emotional over space and say, this is my dream, it's got to happen. Your restaurant space has to make sense financially and physically, because if you buy a fixer-upper, how much work can you realistically do? That's true. You should sometimes really listen to your gut. Often, or not really often, but sometimes, it is actually right. And the third one, show up to your work. It's here. I'll have to check if you just. I hope you can see my cursor. I don't ever know. And by the way, before I forget it, this article is from the Forbes site, and it's from 2018, and from the from November the 30th November. Yeah, you get what I mean, I hope. It's just really tough to find good articles to talk about or discuss with you, because either I'm not really sure if I can trust the source, and I would say I can trust Forbes, and that's why I've chosen them today. And or on the other hand, you just do not get like this quick and or short headlines, which are very practical for me, because I can read them and I can just tell you something about my experiences if I have something, and if not, I cannot. But yeah, the life of a chef often means celebrating other people's milestones while ignoring your own. Major holidays, birthdays, and anniversaries are spent in the kitchen making sure that someone else's night goes perfectly, and that often means sacrifice. No matter what you have got going in your life, you need to show up for work, says Gonzalez. For 30 years, that was my life as a cook. And if you believe me or not, I might have again a quote from Gary Vee, but I'm just thinking about it. No, it isn't actually. But making sacrifices means that you are on the right path, at my point of view, because I said it often, but I will say it again. You cannot expect anything different if you're just doing the same thing over and over again. And by doing something different or something more, but actually doesn't matter, you have to sacrifice something. I just thought about yesterday in the bus, actually, while I was driving to school, about this thing, and I just thought, and I came to the point where I said, it's just true. You have to sacrifice something all the time, because either it's time, or it's other people or other things you do, or in his case, it's quite everything. And you have to be sure about this. But it's actually, it's just a cause of, or not a cause of, but it depends on what you prefer more. If you prefer to be an entrepreneur, and if you prefer or want to grow your own business, you just have to put in the work. There's no way around. And often, and now I will quote. I'll always say quote, but now I quote Gary Vee again, and he says, if you get scammed, just like, you get rid of a lot of money because someone scammed you, or, I hope you know what I mean. That is always because you wanted to cut corners. And I also thought about this, and it's true again, because, if you want to make more money, and for example, you buy a course on making more money in a certain field, and it just doesn't work out, it's because you wanted to cut corners of trying to learn everything yourself, or trying to get more experience, or actually getting more experience, and then you got scammed, or you just fucked up. And then there was another example I had in my mind. You know, all the supplements that are in the market, and they just, you know, say to you that you will get this certain amount of muscle mass in, you know, 10 days because of this product, or because of this program. And it's also because either you're just incompetent, or you wanted to cut corners and therefore you got scammed. It's always the same. And if you have other examples, just let me know in the comments or on Instagram at selfdevelopment_WT. It would be an honor for me. But let's see what they say about being hands-off is a hard lesson to learn. I guess they mean if you can't do anything but things go as they are, and you know, you just have to watch. One thing managers often miss is the hands-off component of their work. Overseeing someone else's achievements is not as tactical as accomplishing the task on your own. As a manager, Gonzalez still misses the elements of service and has had to come to an understanding with his kitchen staff. I'm not allowed to do prep. I change the recipes and I cut something different, and someone else will get in trouble for it, he says. I made a rule with my sous chef that forbids me from prep, but I'll do service for however long it's needed. I just have to read it again. I'm sorry. This must be terrible. If you know, you just use something else and someone else gets blamed for it. I don't really know what this paragraph is about. And if you can let me know, this would be very nice. Just for the other people that may be on my accounts, or maybe listening to this right now or watching this right now. But maybe again, I'll get to this later. Communicate. Communication is key and will always be key, from my point of view, besides self-awareness. But as a head chef, running the kitchen is a natural extension of your skill set, much like the move to middle management in the business world. As an owner, however, suddenly the chef is overseeing not only the kitchen crew but also the front of house staff and other areas that they may be out of their realm of comfort. Gonzalez stresses the need for upper managers to take a step back and think about how they are going to talk to people without getting emotional. Don't get me wrong, I've had my moments where I just wanted to fucking kill somebody. I've come kind of close and I've learned, he says. Among the procedures that Barrow has in place is communication via apps. The team uses this Slack app for sous chefs to communicate and push for a managers only channel. And that's true. I just thought that, especially in the kitchen, when the communication isn't right, you you may be serving your clients or your guests something different than they wanted, which is, always bad because you fuck up your resources and you just kind of have to throw it away, and you fuck up the guest. And so I really expect, and it's just a picture in my mind, that it is very stressful in the kitchen and it is very tough to communicate, also because of the amount of stress there is. But actually, often in my country, in Austria, they only use this, they go to you and they have this kind of, what is it called? Often they just have their blocks and they write with a pencil on it or a pen or whatever. But often now they have some kind of tablets when it's electrical, and even though it just takes a lot of time to for the food to be prepared, even though I was thinking about it would be nice if they just, and I don't even know if it is like this, if they, when this guy, the servant, I don't know what it's called, this person who comes up to you and asks you what you want, and if it's kind of just like a message, and the chef gets it, and so he can cook while you're just kind of talking with the guests. This would be nice. But communication is always important, and especially communication without emotions, I would say, and with both parties being or trying to be very polite and very quite unemotional, because then it's just kind of clear what this conversation is about. Never mind. Handling team conflict. Wow, this might be tough. Kitchens are small spaces, and in confined areas, tempers can flare. Rooting out the problem and creating solutions is a learning process for any manager. Don't just wait for all the answers, find them. In our weekly chef meeting, sometimes we have conflicts, and I ask, you're actually becoming more of a problem right now. If you want to come bitch at me, I want you to have solutions. What can you do to make this better? Says Gonzalez. And it's worked. And it's worked. And it's worked. Now I just sign off on stuff and just let the team do what they do best. That's why I hired them. Yeah. That's true. Just let people do what they are good at, because they're good at. I have to read it again, actually. You're actually becoming more of a problem right now. If you want to come bitch at me, I want you to have solutions. Yeah, it's often good to ask the people for solutions, because, if they have the problems, they might have a solution for you that would fit for them the best. And you can just, make out what's good for both parties, so that everybody is happy. The seventh one, always think big. And I have a quote in my mind. I actually forgotten from whom it was, but I guess I actually heard it in a Les Brown speech. And if you know me, or if you just if you were on my Instagram for a long time, you know that I'm a really fan of Les Brown, because he's actually, besides Gary Vee now and Tony Robbins at the moment, the person with the best speeches in terms of motivation out there. And he says that, or no, it could be Eric Thompson. So either it's Les Brown or Eric Thompson who has said this, what I'm going to say right now. The best thing is to shoot for the moon, because even if you do not hit the moon, you actually will hit some star or any star around the moon. But if you're focusing on the stars, you do not really have the chance to hit the moon like before you could actually hit the moon. But if you focus on the stars, you only hit the stars, or you just hit something under the stars. I don't know, a tree on the earth. And so it's always best to think big and, have big goals. But actually, as I've learned from the last episode, it should be in a year time frame, so that you don't get lost in it, some sort of. But let's see what they are saying. Some of the corporate rules that Barra has in place may seem out of question for independently owned restaurants, but Gonzalez thinks that it's worth considering. I think in order for them to sustain business, they've kind of got to look at these things. Sorry. Because I came from small freestanding restaurants, some without system, where you got trained as you went along, he says. And we had to figure out a lot of things, and because that recipe book may be missing pages, and it was broken telephone between the chef who says 2 cups of onions in the kitchen preps 2 liters, it may have made us better cooks, but we're in a different world now. it's this article is very hard for me. I have to admit it. I think in order for them to stay in business, they've kind of got to look at these things. What things? Some of the corporate rules the borough has in place may seem out of question for independently owned restaurants. Because I came from some without system or the train. It's actually nice to kind of figure it out for yourself because you remember it much better than if you just um, have someone who tells you. Consider work-life balance. This will be the last thing. Gonzalez has either worked out the perfect system or ultimate nightmare for keeping an eye on his restaurant. He lives across the street from Barro. Although it means that he can pop into the restaurant at any time to fix a problem, the key is setting boundaries and leaving once the issue is fixed. My guys know now, if I don't need to be here, I'm not coming. But if shit does go down, call me and I can be there, he says. But don't be the boy that cried don't be the boy that cried wolf. One of the greatest things I learned from working for 2 years at the Hilton in Fort Lauderdale and getting to tier 3 in their management system was coaching for empowerment. And I really hope you got something out of it. I don't know if I will continue this article because I don't really get it, and it seems, besides things I brought in, there isn't much of value in it, and so I'm really kind of sorry for this episode. I hope there was something that you enjoyed, at least, and I hope there was some value I told you, and I'm really happy that you listened to me or you watched me. And if there are any questions, just hit me up on Twitter, on Facebook, on Tumblr actually, if you have it, and on Instagram as well. And for now, thank you very much, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.